tomorrow, the 30th of January, is the 64th death anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. And I'd like to begin this by not quoting Mahatma Gandhi, but another person whom not all of us would have heard about. But in my opinion, because I've just read some of his works in the last 2-3 weeks, is a voice that is equally relevant today to the topic of our discussion. The individual that I'm going to quote, his name is Verrier Elwin. So Elwin was born in Britain and he was educated in Oxford. He was the son of a bishop. He held a degree in theology. He came to India in 1927 to do missionary work. And he decided in the 30s to go to eastern Gujarat, which was the home of the Gond community of tribals, essentially to uplift them. But he went there and in his own words, he felt converted himself. He decided to settle with the Gonds. He married a Gond woman. His children were Gond. And in the next few years, he wrote extensively and quite beautifully about the life and the culture and the history of the Gond people. His work was recognized and he was called upon by Nehru to advise on national committees on policies for tribals. And the quote that I'm going to present today is where he was essentially talking about what should be the Indian policy for the 5 million tribal community who are essentially isolated from civilization. And he was essentially the opinion that it is not for the Indian government to thrust civilization upon them. And he writes, "We may fight for the 3 freedoms. Freedom from fear, freedom from want, freedom from interference. We may see that the tribals get a square deal economically. We may see that they are freed from cheats and impostors, from oppressive landlords and moneylenders, from corrupt and rapacious officials, and if we may add, corporations. We may see that they get medical aid from doctors with some sense of professional integrity. If there must be schools, we may see that these teach useful crafts like carpentry and agriculture and not a useless literacy. We may work to raise the prestige and the honor of the tribals in the eyes of their neighbors. We may guard them against adventurers who would rob them of their songs, their dances, their festivals, and their laughter." As we all know, this dream and hope of Elwin is not true today. The lands that these tribals, especially in Chhattisgarh, inhabit have been ravished by corporations with the active connivance of the Indian government, because these lands are also rich reserves of iron ore and bauxite. And so today, we have come here to protest against these excesses and also excesses against individuals who have spoken out against the violations of human rights in these tribal lands. So in 1922, Mahatma Gandhi was charged by the British government for sedition for his leadership of the non-cooperation movement. It so happens that this law for sedition, which is useful for the British government to extend their hegemony, is still used today, is still abused today to incarcerate individuals who speak out against human rights abuses. And these people who've been incarcerated by the government have been rightly called prisoners of conscience by Amnesty International. In particular, I want to cite Soni Sori, a fearless Adivasi teacher who was wrongly accused again of conniving against the government, of participating in violence against the government, and has been imprisoned, is languishing in jail. I also want to cite Linga Kodopi, who is a journalist, a tribal journalist who spoke out against the government-led burning of 3 villages in Dantewada and has again been imprisoned by the government. And I want to end today by citing a more homely example from the Declaration of Independence, which I'm sure some of us must have heard of. And it goes as follows. "Governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness." Thank you.
Terrorists
are not terrorists.
Democracy involves dissent.
Involves dissent.
We have the right to dissent.
And the right to dissent.
Injustice for one
Injustice for one
is injustice for all.
is injustice for all.
Corporations
Corporations
are not people.
are not people.
People are people.
People are people.
Repeal draconian laws.
Repeal draconian laws.
Dissent is not sedition.
Dissent is not sedition.
Torture
Torture
is unconstitutional.
is unconstitutional.
Stop hunting people.
Stop hunting people.
Protect the defenders.
Protect the defenders.
Article 21
Article 21
guarantee
guarantee
life,
life,
liberty,
liberty,
and due process.
and due process.
Life, liberty, and due process.
Life, liberty, and due process.
Stand up for what is right,
Stand up for what is right,
even if you're standing alone.
even if you're standing alone.
Linga and Soni
Linga and Sori
are not terrorists.
are not terrorists.
Release Linga and Soni.
Release Linga and Sori.
It's Mahatma Gandhi's death anniversary tomorrow, and seeing that he was someone who really stood up for human rights and democracy and our rights to stand up for ourselves and be governed by ourselves in a just manner, we want to take the opportunity to bring attention to cases of gross negligence violation by state government officials in India against one you've already talked about, I think, Soni Sori, her nephew, and other human rights activists who have been simply imprisoned and tortured simply because they choose to stand up for human rights and the basic rights that everyone else is afforded, and demand that even the tribals and the impoverished, the ones who have few resources and are aware of fewer resources, get what they should get, protection of the government and the state.
These abuses, they're taking place in India. We are all the way in cold Boston. So by protesting here, what are you trying to say? And, what do you think can happen by spreading this message here?
Well, I think it is crucial to get the message out. If someone is tortured in a village in the middle of nowhere, whether it's in Uganda or in Colombia or in India, it's irrelevant. But if no one else knows about it and no one else is moved to stand up for it, and as a community, as a global community, we need to say human rights are important and they cannot be violated regardless of the geographical location, the political agendas, the financial potential for certain groups to win from that. We need to stand up and say this is just not okay. We do not accept it. And when someone is languishing in prison as she is, and she really doesn't have very many resources, we are her voice. And wherever we stand and we bring attention to it, we add to her voice and we give her more strength in getting at least the government to rethink their really illegal actions.
So you will keep up this effort until Soni and Linga and other prisoners of conscience are released?
Yes.
What does your sign say and why are you here today?
This sign talks about Soni Sori, actually a tribal school teacher who has been jailed and tortured in jail for speaking out the truth. And that is sad that today in India we are talking about defending the human rights defenders instead of just human rights. So we need to save her as well as the other human rights defenders, as well as human rights basically in India. That's why I'm here.
So you said that she is in jail because she's speaking out
The truth.
the truth. What is the truth?
The truth is basically corporations are actually killing tribals, getting them out of their houses, homes, kicking them out of their homes so that they can drill for iron ore and bauxite. And she's protesting that. She's pointing out that corporations cannot do that. And for this, she's been incarcerated.
I'm going to read out a letter which was written by Soni Sori, who is currently in jail. Why did you educate me? I am Soni Sori, writing this letter from jail. My young daughter must be crying every night, remembering me before she falls asleep. Tell her, Mom will be back soon. I know I won't be able to go back. I know this. But she is a child. Pacify her. We have to have her blood transfused every year, my young daughter. She won't have to bear this pain much longer. Without treatment, she will go quiet this year. Tell my elder son and daughter not to believe anything the kids in school say, that their father and mother made mistakes and that's why they're in jail. My old father's wasting leg will not be treated either now. But I also have a complaint against my father. Why did you educate me? Why did he not know that for a tribal girl to be educated can put her in so much trouble? Uneducated, I would have stayed quiet. I would have taken it, been trodden down. But by educating me, why did you prepare me to speak and to create difficult situations?